Thank you all for being here. So we'll dive right in, Nathan, and we'll all start with beginning to ask what you see or don't see in Wisconsin's economy today. But if we can start off, Nathan, would you mind telling the audience, when today's leaders talk about priorities for Wisconsin's families, communities, and economy, what may they often miss?
I feel like sometimes when we have these conversations, it's transparency. There's the idea that sometimes only the people who need to know the information, but the reality is, at least when I've run my student government, it's been the fact that everyone's at the same level of knowledge and they should have the same information and as anyone else. So when we have these conversations, I think it's important that we factor in all the different aspects, all the different data, all the different kind of like analytics that go into it. So making sure that every person is having the full picture, having the macro and micro, I think is super important.
Thank you, Nathan. We'll go down the row. So Cassie, what's your take on this?
I think that we're focused too much on the right now and not enough in the future, which is understandable, but a lot of people my age are concerned about what our economy is going to look after graduation, especially my generation. I'm a little bit older than some of the people up here. But we thought that we would enter a world where jobs would be plentiful and pay would be great, and we were faced with a different reality. So now it's just reinvesting in our education and trying to shift our perspective a little bit. So I think that bringing younger people into the fold and really actually listening to what their concerns are, I think is the most impactful thing that our leadership can do.
I like that. Transparency and being heard.
I think that there's kind of this combination of like people being afraid of what the future is going to look like, but also really hoping for jobs that will bring them purpose. I think in speaking to all my peers at UW-Madison, it seems like everyone's hoping that their job is going to be something that's important and that means something. And I think that's really special about my generation, is that we really want to make the world a better place. Like everyone I meet is so inspired, and everyone up here is so committed to that path of improvement and of jobs that give them purpose and give back that purpose to others. And then I think at the same time, there's kind of this fear of what the world is going to look like in 15, 20 years with the climate and the economy. And people don't know literally, what the weather will be like in 15 years as they think about starting families and think about moving into a new city for a new job. And so I think there's kind of that combination of people being really hopeful and wanting to make a change, and also feeling like there are things that are going unaddressed about the future of the world.
I think for me, the most important thing that is lacking, and as far as Wisconsin says, is that there's not enough confidence in people that are going into a specific field because they don't get the adequate training for that. And that's missing in a lot of high schools in Wisconsin, and even at a technical college level, because you will graduate with a high school degree and not have anything to really learn from your high school education that will actually apply in the workforce. And on a technical level, you will get an associate's degree, but the job market is so poor right now, especially in Wisconsin, and the science field especially, that nobody is actually prepared for anything. So I feel like job preparation and life preparation as a whole is something that's completely missing from the education system right now.
I think that sorry, my throat's really dry. I think that the future of Wisconsin's economy could be very bright in a sense. Myself, just being a high school graduate and a bunch of my friends going to college, I see kind of what they're choosing in their career path, and some people might not want to stick with their career path or go to college for a certain degree and in a sense just change. Like I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. And for me, just going straight into the workforce in my landscape architecture, I think it's, I guess I got lucky in a sense, just to have that guarantee that I'm going to do this, for the foreseeable future. And, I'm working towards being the head of my company. And I just think it's really important that, like economically wise, I think the future is bright for certain people.
Yeah, and I mean, some of the things I've heard from students and what I'm kind of hearing on this panel right now is there's almost a volatility, and there's kind of a reality of, are we really ready to kind of enter that workforce, kind of enter that environment? I mean, a good example of this could be AI use. I mean, we're looking at it from the education standpoint. People are getting expelled. People are getting disbanded from like their universities because they're using AI. But the reality is AI isn't going anywhere, and that's what economists have said. That's what basically every profession is kind of leaning into, is the fact that it may not be to the extent that people may think it is, but it will be in the workforce. So if we're not prepared to kind of use AI as a tool and kind of learn how to use it in our education, are we really prepared to kind of enter that workforce?
Good points. Thank you. And what I'm hearing is that it's in many ways a very transitional time for your age group and where you are as far as your careers, and the desire to lean in to that change, and also have that support from your government as well. So, Henry, what would you say is not understood about your generation's priorities or aspirations?
I think you said what is not understood?
Yeah, what might not be understood?
I think, at least in my perspective, I had my graduation party last June, and a bunch of, I had a couple hundred people there, and whenever they, would ask me, like, what am I doing next year? And I think a lot of maybe the older generation necessarily thinks that you kind of have to go to college to have a successful life or a successful, you know what I'm saying? But whenever I'd say, like, yeah, I'm going into the workforce and, going into landscape architecture, they'd always, like, not really, like, judge me or, just kind of confused look, I'd say. 'Cause I mean, that's just what they don't expect. They expect, I think, a lot of kids that graduate to go straight to college, get a degree, have a holding job, and whenever I would tell them I'm going into landscape architecture, they'd be like, "Oh, okay, like that's cool." And I just think it goes on to, like, the misunderstanding or the understanding of what like the older generation might think about the current generation, and that there is different opportunities that people post high school can take rather than just going to college.
Absolutely. So hearing the need for open-minded
Yeah.
and understanding that everybody's path looks different. Awesome. Anyone else want to?
I actually think that's really interesting, as somebody who came from the millennial generation, who were, as a collective, told and followed that path of going straight into college after high school, and kind of finding that path didn't really exist the way that we thought it did. I'm seeing a larger shift now in my nieces and my nephews' generation, where the drive, not the drive, I don't want to use that word because it's kind of, it has a different meaning, but the desire to go to college immediately after high school isn't as prevalent because they see their older generations and how that affected them and how much debt they're in and how they're struggling to climb out of that student debt. So I think that the younger generation is being more mindful about the investments in their future because they see what came before them. And I think that it's important to start adapting to that cultural shift instead of trying to keep forcing this narrative on people that this is what you need to do to succeed.
Yeah, to add on to that, I mean, I believe there's like almost an internal panic as well. I mean, I know, at least from my perspective, my parents pushed me very heavy to go to a 4-year institute and get my degree and everything. But the reality is, I mean, you do what you're expected to. You get a 4.0, you graduate with a bachelor's degree, and people still aren't being able to find jobs. So it's kind of one of those things where you've done everything you've been asked to. You've been able to get to where you need to go. You've accomplished everything that you've been asked to do. So but you still can't find kind of a job that kind of fits that criteria, or even like the living expenses. I mean, we were talking about this earlier, is the fact that you get a good job, but it's still not able to afford the lifestyle to be comfortable. So it's kind of one of those things where it's you've done everything you've been supposed to do, and you still can't live that life that you were kind of expecting.
So I'm hearing that your generation is approaching your future with more intentionality. And it's not that you necessarily want to avoid those paths, but you want to make sure, you want to ensure that that's the right path for you, and being more intentional about what you want to do with your future and your time. And if it makes a difference, is it going to make the world a better place? Let's do that. So, who here thinks that leaders actually get something right? And what is it?
In my time in Wisconsin student government, and most recently in my election as vice president of WSG, I do see a lot more active involvement with younger generations and actual curiosity. They actually want to listen to us, which I think when I was 18 and 19, I didn't feel that same kind of effort. So I see the effort being made on leadership to actually look towards what the younger people think and how they feel, and what their concerns are. So I do see that effort being made, which I really appreciate.
I love that.
Yeah, I think that kind of similar to what you're saying, I think there's kind of this like newfound interest in hearing the younger generation's voices, because I think, you know, there's been a couple of presidential elections in the past that younger people just didn't vote. And I think people saw those numbers and they were like, well, why wouldn't young people vote? Like, this is your future and this is important to you. And I think all those people felt like they weren't being listened to. And that's, you know, that reflects in all of those polls. And I think that these days there's been a lot more interest in hearing what we have to say, especially because, you know, there's like an 8 to 9% unemployment rate for people graduating college, which is super different from the around 3% for the country. And I think, you know, that's like kind of really important to us. Obviously, I'm about to graduate and figure out my next steps, and that's super stressful, as you know, we've all been there, I'm sure. And I think like that kind of stressful feeling that a lot of people our age are kind of feeling right now is being heard and being listened to. And I feel like that's a big change from before. So I think definitely like the fact that, you know, leaders are starting to listen and to hear what is important to us is helpful.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I personally have kind of a more engagement in the political aspect to it. I see a lot of state and local officials. They do a great job. They really understand what youth want. I mean, they're very engaged. Our state representatives and our mayor come to our university, I want to say like every month or so, to understand what students want. But I really don't understand where the disconnect between local politics, state politics, and national politics is. I mean, everyone on this panel, I can assure you, probably wants the same thing. They want a comfortable life. They want to be able to raise a family comfortably, and they want enough money to do that effectively. But it's just kind of seeming like there's a disconnect between national politics, state and local politics, and it's really unfortunate, because I've seen really great leaders on this level. But I've asked them, I said, why don't you want to run for governor, or kind of a more national kind of perspective? And the reason is volatile. I mean, people are scared to go into that level of politics because of retaliation and it's just different factors that they know that they want to stay local because they can make the most impact, which is kind of a shame that they don't feel comfortable going to that next level because of exterior factors.
So you feel local government is trying to, thank you.
Yeah, I also think that the local government is also pretty much actually listening to our generation a lot more often, especially students who are pursuing like careers in higher positions like in government or in science, honestly, because currently there's a study that's being conducted right now about microbial activity and potentially using the exotoxins that bacteria releases to make new antibiotics, and that is actually being pushed more by the younger generation of science researchers and pharmacologists and everything than the older generation, because they think that what we have right now will still last, which honestly is kind of sad, because penicillin for as long as it's been around, it's not going to last forever because of antibiotic resistance. So local governments actually listening to us, especially having people like our mentors, instructors actually advocating for us, is actually giving us more confidence in cementing what our careers in the future will be to actually pursue happiness and a comfortable lifestyle.
Thank you.
Man, I think going last, like everybody just says all the good stuff, and I don't even know. I guess kind of just going off like the younger generation and leadership. I just think there's a lot of, good promising stuff that the younger generation can accomplish, and whether that's going to college or just going straight to the workforce. Like, older people think like, oh, these kids are just on their phones or, on electronics and stuff, and they don't know what they're going to do past high school. But, once somebody gets their mindset on something that they want to do for the rest of their life, it kind of just go from there. And I think people can succeed in stuff that they really want to try to do for the rest of their life.
So do you feel leaders are becoming more open to different paths? And
I mean, I would say, like, to be honest, I haven't talked to too many like local leaders or group leaders like in the state of Wisconsin, but just from, like what I do at my job and stuff, I think there's a lot of promise and stuff in the future.
And there's so much of a need for so many different trades and areas of focus. So it's really great to see so many different paths. Okay, so switching gears a bit into economic realities. I think it's going to get good here. Economic realities, living, studying, and working in Wisconsin. So Henry, actually, we'll start with you. What's the biggest economic challenge facing young people in your community when it comes to housing, jobs, cost of living, or something else?
I think, I'd say, well, most of my friends, are in college, so I haven't heard of, them, trying to get houses and stuff. But for me, I guess, I'm not trying to live with my parents for 10 years or whatever. Like, whenever I get enough money to move out, I'm going to move out. And I think it's more like when people go to college and they, accumulate debt, and obviously it gets paid off later in life once they get a new job. But for the housing aspect, I think it's hard for some people, to get an apartment or get a house when they're dealing with a lot of debt or just not having enough money to afford one. And I think that can be really difficult for younger people that maybe myself, that will move out of my parents' house at some point, hopefully in the nearby future. And I think it could be difficult for some people, but if you have good structure and good, like, you take care of your money, well, I think it could be all right.
Thank you. Nikki, what are your thoughts?
Well, I'll be 25 this year, so as somebody that's kind of like in the bridge of like millennials and like Gen Alpha and stuff and people like that, I think we have the most pressure on our generation to get a house now or move out, get an apartment, but it's not actually feasible without having to work 2 jobs. And on top of students, if you live by yourself, you're working 2 jobs, and then you're also going to school. So it's just unrealistic. And I know, like, for older generations, they see that we're just not working hard enough. And me personally, I hate that idea. I do not like the idea that my generation is not working hard enough when we are trying to pursue a future for ourselves the best possible way that we can in this economy. Because inflation from 80s, 90s has gone way up all the way until now. Houses are unaffordable to us right now if we're not making at least $80,000 a year. Renting is an extremely hard task. Like, I have my best friend that lives in Alabama right now. She's trying to find a place that will actually approve her. And that's even an issue because she only makes like 40, 50,000 a year herself. So it's unfortunate that because I still live with my parents. I'll probably live with them until I'm like 38 or something. Because I want to pursue higher education. And that's not going to be possible if I'm living by myself. So that's my thoughts. I think it's very much of a stretch to say that we can comfortably afford a place by ourselves if we don't have at least 2 other roommates. So it's unfortunate, but that's just reality.
That's really interesting because there's a lot of people in my age, the millennials, that find themselves even out of school with their college degrees, working in their jobs, and the housing expenses just continuously climb and exceed their affordability for them. There's so many of people that I remember going to college with when I was younger that moved in back with their parents because renting became so obscenely expensive for them that it didn't make sense for them to stay there, even working 2 jobs, because they were literally only making enough money to pay their bills. They couldn't do anything else. And I think one thing that our generations, millennials, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, are prioritizing is a healthy work-life balance, because we recognize that just working hard all the time doesn't fulfill you. You don't want to spend your life working just to survive. So I relate to you on the level of, especially with older generations, thinking that our generations don't work hard enough when almost everybody that I know has at least 2 jobs.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, you go.
Yeah, I think I don't want to just echo. I mean, I agree with what you all have been saying. I think it's a really stressful time. So I think maybe to think about things slightly more hopefully, I think there's like a lot of new opportunities that are going to start coming out, just because I think there's so much new technology being developed, and there's all these new different ways of thinking that I think leaders and jobs are starting to adapt. And I think I've seen that a lot in just the positions that have been open since being a freshman looking for internships to now being a senior looking for jobs. Like the job descriptions and the type of jobs offered to people with my major are different. And I think that's a product of the changing kind of environment with technology and the new ways that you can apply. I'm an economics major, the new ways you can apply economics to different kinds of things. I think that kind of like critical thinking is a lot more important these days. And I think that's something that, if we're talking about, what should be emphasized in schools and in high schools, I think kind of learning how to use that critical thinking skill rather than just these kind of like strict math skills is really important. And I think that's kind of one of the realities is learning how to, because the truth is, yes, the housing is expensive and the job market is tight. And so how do you deal with that? And I think something I've seen a lot of people do is kind of focus on those other types of skills and try to market themselves in a new way. And I think that's just, to provide a little more of a hopeful answer to the question. I think there's a lot of opportunity for new types of jobs. And yeah.
Yeah, when I'm looking at it from the job market perspective, I think it's just so difficult. I applied to a financial advising firm. I met the criteria perfectly, and I got a rejection letter. And I was looking at it, I'm like, okay, so I matched this, and this. And then we get to the requirements, 5 to 7 years of experience. I'm 21. When was I supposed to get 5 to 7 years of experience? So it's one of those things where it's like you could fit the criteria and the mold perfectly, but I don't know if we're in that situation or that kind of we're just not in that situation where we can get these positions, even these entry-level positions, just because of the lack of experience that, I've had internships and stuff, but it doesn't really match up to the kind of workload of entry-level positions. So it's kind of hard to fit that criteria when you don't have the time or the years to do so. And I think also, I believe there's a financial disparity or a disconnect between different generations. I mean, my dad tells me about how he moved to Madison with $500. And he looks at my expenses right now and he's like, I won't even last 2 weeks in Green Bay. So, I mean, that's the reality of it, is things are more expensive. And I mean, job market, I mean, the salaries are going up, but I don't think it's matching the level of like the expense of living is. So it's hard to kind of connect it when they're so disconnected.
So one of the things that we're talking about right now in Wisconsin student government in terms of what we would like to position ourselves to advocate for when we speak with our legislators is the investment in actual workforce development for students, because we have the education, we can do the education, we can perform well, and we're still not finding those jobs, or we're finding ourselves at a stalemate because we don't have the actual experience. So I would love to see more investment in actual expansion of internship opportunities or work opportunities for students while they're still in school, so that they have that synchronous experience where they're getting their education while also getting the real world work experience. So I think that companies and leaders should really look towards investing in the future, because you're more likely to find an individual that's willing to stay with your company for a longer time because they remember that you invested in them and you believed in them when you were younger and when you were learning. And that also gives you the opportunity to really mold somebody to your workplace and your work culture and show them why the work that they're doing is important.
I love that. The desire to have that investment into your future and then that loyalty back to the company. So anyone can jump in on this one, but how does transportation and student debt influence your choices?
I would say transportation, something that I think about a lot. I'm from California, and there's like one direct flight a month, I think, from LA to Madison, which is crazy because Madison is the capital of this, and it has so many. Madison's an amazing city. And I think that for Wisconsin, I think that is something, and it was mentioned in one of the panels yesterday. I think that's something that's important, and I hope it could be expanded, because I think there are so many people who would love a life in Madison and Milwaukee and in any of the amazing towns in Wisconsin, but they're simply hard to access from a lot of other states, and unless you're driving, several hours. I think access to like a transportation system, or better access to flights, better access to trains, that kind of thing would bring so many people to Wisconsin. Because I know for me, thinking about where I'll live in the future, and I'd love it to be somewhere I could see my family. And frankly, Madison is such a hard place to get home from, because it's 2 connecting flights or a bus, and it's a lot. So I think obviously the train system in America, everyone is always talking about building that, so I don't need to touch on that. I think we've all heard about how it would be great to have a train system that go across the country, but I think definitely the transportation in Wisconsin to other states, if that would be expanded, I think it would be like really helpful for the growth of young communities, because people from other states could feel like it was easy for them to come and move and still maintain a connection to where they're from.
Thank you.
And I also think that, just bouncing off of you right now, as far as transportation, because I drive about an hour each day to go up to my school, because I live in Manitowoc, have to drive up to NWTC basically every day starting next week now. So it's kind of hard to do that when there's like such a long distance. And if I want to go visit like my best friend in Alabama, I have to drive all the way down to Chicago, because that's the only way that I can get a flight that has one layover that's at least 1 hour. Or if my best friend wants to come up here and visit me, they will have to take a bus to the airport, or have somebody drop them off at the airport that's down in Alabama, then take a flight, potentially have an overnight layover, which is kind of crazy to me. And then I will have to drive 2.5 hours to go get them, because that's the only airport that we can actually get to. So if they were to just expand that a lot more and have a lot more access to airports and bus systems other than just in Milwaukee and the Chicago area, or even like somewhat the Madison area to a certain extent, because I'm pretty sure there's like bus systems down there, then I feel like Wisconsin would be a lot more welcoming state, including if they add a lot more like closer restaurants that are like down south and everything. Because honestly, the nearest Sonic to me is like in Madison, which is 2.5 hours from me. And the nearest Chick-fil-A to me is 40 minutes for me. So they should make a lot more of these restaurants more accessible also, to attract more people to come up here.
Well, I think even on a local level, when you're investing in local public transportation, I see posts on Facebook almost every single day of people like in these like Green Bay people helping people groups that are like, can somebody give me a ride to work because the bus doesn't run until 6 a.m. and I have to be there for 5. So even outside of just our needs, I'm thinking of, we want people to enter the workforce, we want people to stay in the workforce, but we're inhibiting their ability to do that because they don't have access to reliable transportation. And if you're saving up for a car, like how are you going to do that if you're spending $30 a day on an Uber to get to and from work, or paying somebody, $50 a week to take you to work? I think that we need to stop restricting access to public transportation and expand it on not just an economic level, but even an environmental level.
Yeah, I think you mentioned something about student debt in there, right? In there as well, right?
Student debt, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think
Transportation and
I think that goes pretty hand in hand. I mean, personally, I know I'm gonna have to prolong a lot of the goals I have because of the student debt I have. And if I want to afford a car that can take me from where I am to where I want to go and it's a 30-minute drive, I'm not gonna be able to find reliable transportation. So, I mean, there's almost this pressure. I feel like I carry baggage of student debt where I have to pay it off as soon as I can just to make sure I can start to move on to the next goals I have. But it prolongs everything. And that's kind of what I'm getting at, is the fact that I can't afford a car, I can't afford a house, can't afford post-grad if I want to go that route until I feel like I get this monkey off my back. And this is what I've heard people say. But the same thing with transportation. Like I can't afford to get to where I need to go to if I can't pay off what I've kind of inquired. So.
Thank you. Next question. Last question in this segment or this section, but do you think Wisconsin is creating the right mix of industries for your generation? Looking at Nikki, she looks like she has something.
As far as in the science field, the only place that you can honestly go to like expand upon that career is either Oshkosh or Madison. They don't really expand much into it. You can consider Green Bay also another one, but other than that, it's mainly like just nursing opportunities everywhere. Travel nursing, travel technicians, nurse technicians, phlebotomists. That's really the only career in the science field that is getting expanded upon in Wisconsin, which you need every component in Wisconsin to actually function. Like you need microbiologists, you need pharmacology, you need virology, you need every aspect. So the fact that I have to move outside of Wisconsin to even get a chance to be a microbiologist in a different state without me having to move my entire life to Madison, because I still have to consider my parents, because I'm going to still live with my parents. I'm not ashamed of that. I know a lot of people have shame in that, but I have no shame in that. But it just needs to get better, like for microbiology, because right now, only field that I can actually go into for microbiology is currently a lab up here in Green Bay without having to drive 2.5 hours to a different laboratory. So I think they should expand upon the science field a lot more right now.
It's vital.
So I actually just went to a Equity and Tech Summit in Milwaukee on Tuesday. And we were discussing on the expansion of the tech industry in Milwaukee, and Milwaukee becoming a tech hub, which I love. I love the idea of the expansion of tech in Wisconsin, especially when you see things like Cellcom and Prevea. I think that company leaders and investors should invest in in-house tech opportunities and IT teams, just from a security standpoint, and looking how quickly it can be dangerous to lose that security as a company, and how prolonged your losses become if you don't have a dedicated team that's right there with you every step of the way. If you have a breach in security and now you have to bring in an outside team, well, now they have to completely learn your infrastructure and figure out what's going on, versus if you actually have your own dedicated in-house IT team, you have people that know what your assets are, that know like what your day-to-day business looks like, and not just a system on a screen.
Yeah. Yep. So, looking forward to aspirations and investment on that same thought. Cassie, if you had $50 million to invest in one issue, where would it go and why?
As much as I would like to say I'd like to invest in myself, I think, again, one of my biggest things that I've learned in my educational journey is really expanding apprenticeship programs and internship opportunities. People in our fields, in our age bracket, in education, we want to work. There's no question that every single person that I've met is willing to jump in and start working, willing to start at the bottom and learn and work their way up. But we just don't have that opportunity. And it's almost impossible to find unless you know somebody who knows somebody. And I know it's all about who you know and not what you know. But I think that you can only have so many opportunities that are open. And we have so many people that are eager and willing to jump into those opportunities, but we don't have enough of those options. So I would love to see incentivization for companies to expand their apprenticeship programs and internship programs, as well as making education more affordable for students, and especially returning adult students who want to come back to work and are balancing work-life, family obligations, which is the nice thing about NWTC is they work really well with adult returning students. But I think mostly just focusing on affordable education and those apprenticeships and internship programs, I think would benefit not just us, but the state as a whole and its future.
Absolutely. Thank you. Nathan, how about you? Where would you invest $50 million and why?
Yeah, I think I would invest it. I think I would invest it back into the state. Actually, I mean, I want to invest in what works, and I think it kind of ties back to what I was saying about the transparency thing. I took notes, and I kind of got some statistics that I was able to pull from Ahmad Rivera Wagner, who is our state representative for the 90th district. $100,000 grant from the city was distributed by the United Way and FCRNEW to child care providers within the city to demonstrate a need. So basically this went towards licensing, materials, and equipment. With $100,000, they were able to place 200 new family and group-based child care slots. The reason why I think this is important is because if you have a community that nurtures the people that need help and that you create an environment that supports the people who are trying to make things happen, who may not have time, the effort, or the money to kind of get to where they need to, it creates opportunities for everyone present. I mean, you take, I don't want to say a burden is a bad way to put it, but you take off a priority or obligation that they have and you give them the chance to kind of do what they need to do and kind of fly free a little bit, and then they can give back to the city just as much.
Good. So, for the sake of time, I'm going to switch gears into community belonging and the decision to stay in Wisconsin. So, Henry, what does community mean to you, and how does it affect your decision to stay in Wisconsin?
I think community, like, I've lived in my small town of Evansville. It's about like 5,000 people for my whole life, 18 years. And I don't really know anything other than it, so I take a lot of pride in being from, this small town Evansville because it means so much to me. And just like the community that is there, it's so awesome. I love all the people that are there. And so it gives me sort of a belonging to be there. And I hope my parents, live there for a while so I can keep coming back. Or if I end up moving into another apartment or a house in Evansville, just around that area, I think, because I have so many people that are connected to me that I don't want to, go out of state or leave. And I know that might be different for some other people, but especially just my job, like it's not someplace, I can go like to a different state and, start it. I've built so much with the company that I'm a part of now. And it's a good sense of belonging to be with people that, want to be around you and stuff like that.
You've grown your roots, Lieutenant?
Yes.
Sorry, I'm a mom. Thank you. I love that. Nikki, how about you?
Well, I think community, what it means to me is family and the people that support and care about you. So as somebody whose family isn't from the United States, I don't have access to see my entire family every day. Like, I can't see my grandmother whenever I want to. I'll have to plan for that, and I at most maybe see her once, maybe twice a year, if that. So while I am still with my parents, my older sister is across in Virginia right now. My uncle, he's in Connecticut right now. And that's really the only family I have out here. So that's what it means to me. And as somebody that is going into the science field, I can say, and anybody aspiring to go into the science field, we are a very tight-knit group. The science community is. Regardless of where you go, you will always be connected to those people. Like, I can say with full confidence that all of my instructors, my mentor, Angelo, who is also helped with making my program, the Laboratory Science Technology program at NWTC, I can say with full confidence, I will never lose contact with him because I'm in the science community and because he is such a big impact in my life up to this point now. So that's what it means to me. And while I'm not going to stay in Wisconsin, me personally, because I just don't see myself staying here long term, I can say that the connections that I've made here, they will forever be with me because they care about my future, my aspirations, what I'm doing, and the path that I'm taking for myself.
I love that.
Yeah, I think maybe from a little different lens, I think I always say it's California. One of the things that I think makes Wisconsin so special is the community. I think maybe it's hard to realize when you're here long term or you're from here, but coming from Los Angeles, it's not a place that, you turn the corner and people smile at you and ask how you're doing. In Madison, it's completely the opposite. Everyone is so welcoming and the communities are so kind. And even beyond the student community, if you go to some more residential areas, they have incredible resources for those communities and incredible neighborhood support. And I think that's really unique and special to Wisconsin. And so I think when thinking about community and thinking about where, would I settle down and start a family, I think I am definitely looking for things like that. And I think that is really special about Wisconsin. And I haven't lived in many other places in the state, but about Madison, it makes it so warm and welcoming. I think that's really unique. And if that could be capitalized upon and shown to people from other cities who are looking to settle down, I think it would make it a really popular place to move and start a family. Not that it isn't already, but.
Thank you. So moving into our lightning round, if you can, we're going to run through these questions. Think of a word or a few words that for a response for the following, please. So Nathan, what's one word to describe Wisconsin's economic future?
Promising.
Thank you. Cassie, if you could change one economic factor tomorrow, what would it be?
Housing affordability.
Thank you. Adina, what's the number one reason you would stay in Wisconsin to build your career?
The communities.
Thank you. Vicki, could you finish this sentence, please? Wisconsin's economy will be stronger if
the leaders continue to listen to us.
Thank you. Henry, would you bet on Wisconsin's economy in the next decade? Why or why not?
Yes, the future and the people that are in it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And so thank you to all of you, our panelists, for sharing your voices and vision. These conversations are a reminder that unlocking Wisconsin's economic future starts with investing in the people who will inherit it and lead it. These are the leaders that will inherit what we build today. So let's make sure that it's a Wisconsin that they are proud to lead. So thank you so much for your time. I do want to ask, do we have time for a question, or are we do? Okay. I do see. Here with.
Can I say something real quick?
Oh, wonderful. We do.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Let me pick one up.
I just want to say, I think it's a true testament to to everyone in this room, I mean, we've all come from different kind of like areas, different lives. We've all had different experiences, and the reality is that we're all here together to kind of like look at the financial outlook for Wisconsin. I think it's beautiful. It's a true testament to like Wisconsin as a state. I think it's kind of an environment that gives everyone an opportunity to play on an even battlefield, it would say. But I appreciate that everyone's been able to come here and support us just as much as we want to support everyone in here. So thank you. So
I also think the poetic, I think it's poetic how we're sitting here and we're talking about our future and the future of Wisconsin's economy, and we're really adhering to our state motto of forward.
Okay. So, I guess I'll start with you, Cassie, if possible. Questions from the audience. Knowing what you know now, and I say this because I know you mentioned you have some nieces and nephews. Knowing what you know now, what life advice would you give to people who are younger than you? For example, someone in middle school or in early high school.
I actually had a conversation with my niece when she was about to graduate high school, and she didn't want to go to college. And I told her, I was like, well, you absolutely do not have to. If you want to spend time working and finding what it is, because I went to college thinking I was going to be a marketing person, and I got into that program and I realized that I hated it. And then I spent 4 years really trying to figure out what I was passionate about. And thankfully, I come from a place where my higher education was paid for. But if I didn't, I would have that much debt for me trying to figure out what it was that I want to do. So I would say find what your passion is and find what you're good at, and then go into education if that's what fits yours, what would fit your journey the best.
Thank you. This would have been a good one for you, Cassie, too, because you just talked about that. Okay. Every generation has their definition of hustle culture and what it means. What does it mean for you? Anyone can. Yeah, go crazy.
Hustle culture,
Yeah. What does it mean to you?
I think a lot of the younger generation kind of going on, forgot who said it, but somebody said that there's a lot of, promise, and people that necessarily aren't going to college, that doesn't mean that they're not, that they don't have a good work ethic. People that are going into a workforce or trades or something, just because they're not going to college doesn't mean they have a good work ethic. And, me myself, I'm working 12-hour days, 60-hour weeks if I'm not working weekends. And I think that just goes to prove, and that's not just me, it's a bunch of other people that I, too, have graduated with, and I know are on the same path, kind of similar hours as me. And I think that just goes to show, that the younger generation, even if people don't think so, truly do have a good work ethic, especially if they're doing something that they love and enjoy.
Thank you. We touched on this a bit, and we'll close with this question. And for any of the panelists that would like to jump in, but what do you most want to see in the community you live in?
I'd like to see more curiosity. I think that a lot of people get stuck in their niche fields or their own communities, that they stop wanting to learn about other things. And especially as somebody who's studying tech, where things are changing literally by the minute, I have that spark of curiosity and always wanting to learn about things. And I want more people to have that, and not just in tech, but in any area of your life. If it's people that you want to learn about, if it's cultures that you want to learn about, if it's art, music, technology, finance, that just be more curious about things and be more willing to learn and be more willing to be wrong.
Yeah, I'm looking at more conversations. I see Jeff Murky's in the back there. There we go. So he's a member of Downtown Green Bay, and we had a conversation yesterday. It's basically how do we build a bridge between the university and the city? And this is a conversation that we had. It was the fact that they've tried in the past, we've tried in the past, and it's about continuing those conversations on how is the best and most effective way that we can go about making sure that we both have our best interest in mind, and we can build that bridge between the university and the city to make sure that that continuous partnership and relationship kind of flourishes as we go on. My mindset is leave it better than you found it. I only have 4 years here, so continue that impact even after I'm gone. And I can tell you every person in this room probably has the same goal. You want to leave whatever you're doing better than you found it, so that the next generation is inheriting something better. So that's my mindset is, if we continue those conversations, I don't think we can fail.
I think like a focus on mentorship. I mean, all of you have incredible positions within WEDC or outside of it. And I think maybe like adults don't necessarily realize how amazing it feels when you're able to connect with a student, even just for a 20-minute coffee chat, and just share advice and share your story. I think all of those conversations that I've had, and I had a conversation a couple of days ago, and it was with my mom's former colleague, and he had come to our coffee chat with a list of everyone he knew at the firms I was applying to for jobs next year. And he was like, here's how I can help. Here's how I can reach out. And I think that type of help is so easy. It's, just sending an email or just even just talking and reviewing someone's resume. And I think that has such an impact. It literally made my day because, just hearing that someone is invested in your future and cares about your future on a personal level and is willing to make that call and say, here's someone great who I know and here's their resume. That is so important. And I think that is like really how we build. And, I hope to one day be able to do that for people younger than me. And I think just giving that back and continuing that.
Thank you.
I think we should have some more wonder in the world. That's just from my standpoint. I want people to actually wonder about what their future can actually be like if they go down a certain career path. I know for me, from a very, very young age, I've always had a wonder about science since I was 5 years old in the backyard messing around with insects. I've always just had a wonder about how things work, how things would turn out if I did a specific way. And regardless if you're in the science field or not, you should have some wonder about how the economics and how the future of Wisconsin and our future generations could actually be like if you were to support them. Like, this entire summit is about supporting the future generation. And I think older generations are going to learn a lot more better techniques and ways to support us if they were to just wonder about what we want in the future.
Thank you. Anything you want to close with, Henry?
I think too, kind of going off what Nikki said, like she always wanted to, go into the science field. And for me, I guess I didn't really think about, going into landscape architecture. And like when I was a junior, so I guess 2 years ago, wasn't really sure if I wanted to go to college because it's obviously like a possibility. I mean, like in my intro, like I had a 3.5, it wasn't that I couldn't go to college. It was more of just like, I just didn't think it was right for me. Like I knew. And then whenever I met my boss now, and he connected me with some people, and it's just, I've just been really fortunate to come into my situation, and just with all the opportunities that it gives me, whenever we're meeting with new clients or whatever, and I introduce myself to them when he's talking with them too, he's like, oh yeah, this is Henry, like he's gonna be running my business one day, so it gives me a good sense of pride and, kind of what we were talking about before, like investing in your workers. And I know that he's put a lot of investment into me, and I just want to, give my all to him and try my hardest,
Absolutely. So we've heard a lot of great things this morning. We've heard be curious, wonder, invest, grab a cup of coffee and be interested, and the story of someone from another generation, build bridges. And if you invest in our future, they will invest back and they will work hard and do all that they can as well. So if we could give a round of applause to these amazing panelists. Thank you each so much. Appreciate it. Thank you.